We just had a chance to take a look at how you can get started with your very first project with MRTK3. And I would say, as we just spoke with Jesse, just the getting started has definitely come some ways, I would say, from even when we first started, for sure. And so again, the MRTK3 packages are going to be available in the mixed reality feature tool, so you will need that. And as also mentioned, we've broken out the packages now with MRTK3, so ensure that you are adding the correct packages that you need for your project. Our documentation has a lot of information in there about what's in each package as well, and so definitely ensure that you review that too. And from what I was just seeing, Max shared a couple examples from the sample project that we have, different ways you can go about manipulating objects, for example. I just saw he ended off with grabbing the coffee cup that's in there and being able to use, hands, and he did all that in the editor. I can tell just from seeing the way the hands are.
The first time I used the editor, I could not figure out how to make it grab. Like the shortcut, I was like clicking with my mouse and I'm like, how do I do this? And so I'm glad that was probably talked about there to kind of how to actually start to get used to using that editor and creating the motions that you want to happen.
I feel like after a while they start to become second nature, and that is one thing that we've also have documented with just in general the different controls, because it's a combination of either just your keyboard or your mouse. And if you are using your keyboard, I would say you stay more on the left side of the keyboard.
Is that the trick?
Yeah, you'll figure things out there for sure. But it's just nice to be able to try those things out in the editor. There's more samples though beyond just seeing how to use Object Manipulator in the MRTK. There's also there's buttons, and so things like the keyboard, for example, that's literally a button because you're pressing it. And there's other examples. I don't want to give things too much away just in case the guys didn't go over it, but we have some examples with regards to theming, data binding as well, which also happens to be one of my favorite newest features available with MRTK3. But just from the getting started perspective in projects, it kind of just brings me back a little bit more to just some prior projects I've done. And then Cassie, I know you've done a good amount of projects, but what's been your most favorite one you've done?
It's hard to choose a favorite because I love all of my babies, right? It's like my projects are my babies. But I am a huge music head. Like I love music, I listen to all kinds. And there was this one, actually like 9 Inch Nails concert I went to where they had this really cool graphic of like a drum machine. And so if you've ever done any like music production and but you or seen what I'm talking about, basically what it does is it would go through at a steady BPM and it would play different drum notes, and that would create like the drum pattern for the show. And I was like, this was really cool. And they built out this crazy custom tech thing. But I was like, what if I could build this with mixed reality? Like, what if I could make this drum machine idea? And so what I ended up doing is taking the MRTK and the buttons, because the buttons actually kind of look like little square drum machines. And then I just like toggled them on and off. So like you could toggle whichever, and I did like 5 different types, like kick drum and snare and like all those different types of sounds. And then I never like iterated on it, so I just had a steady BPM, but I thought it would be really cool. And then essentially what it would do is just loop through, and as it would go through each loop, you could turn different ones on, and then you could like record a beat pattern like through the thing. And then I was like, I think it'd be so cool if this doesn't exist yet that I know of, but like a MIDI controller or something like that. Like there's so many different like music equipment things that you can get. And I am not an expert in it at all, but I like to like play with stuff. And I think it'd be so cool to have like a virtual one. Like that was like just a proof of concept of like, could you create music with this? Or like have different types of like tech built into musical performances, I think is really cool. Like I think it's Imogen Heap, I think is how you say her name. She had a really cool one where she built like this glove. That was also what I was thinking about, is this glove where she could like do different hand movements and cue different parts of her music. And I was like, what a neat way to like experience and create music. And I think that that's like a really interesting space. So that one's my favorite just because I think it's like a neat idea. I mean, and I know that now there has actually been some like, I think like other hollow drum type
Yeah.
things that have come out. Because that one I think I built a few years ago. But
Yeah.
what about you? Do you have a favorite?
Before I get to my favorite, I remember at one point, were you doing something with piano, I remember, to practice? Or I think at some point having the notes, the music in front of you as you were practicing.
Okay, that was an idea that I never built out that I really wish
Aw.
I would have.
Yeah.
But the idea was to have the sheet music in front of me
Yeah, that's what
because
it's called.
I play the guitar badly and I read tabs. And
Yeah.
so I have this like app that I really like to use that has, it's called actually just like tabs, and it has the different tabs for different music. Well, like I'm always trying to set my phone up different places, and I'm like, I would love to just put on my HoloLens
Yeah.
and like open up my app and then have it just in front of me. And no matter where I look, my music then will always be right in front of my face. And so I thought that would be a really neat one. And I feel like that might have, I saw something like that, I think a year or so ago now. But
Yeah.
that was one that I wanted to build, you know, and like all the
Yeah.
ideas, and then whether they come to fruition is another question. But
Yeah, I
All
completely
the time.
understand understand that feeling. I would say for me personally, kind of talked about it a little bit earlier as I was discussing the ways you use HoloLens in the classroom and exploring different monuments. And when I actually fully did build out something a little more around that, it was a project where yes, there were the different monuments from around the world for students to explore, but then I also added a bot to it as well. And so digging in from like my Python background, I was really into AI assistants or just smart assistants in general and like chat bots. And so I wanted to bring a little bit of that into mixed reality. So I created this bot, or I integrated this bot within the experience. And so as you were looking at whatever monument was there, you can ask the bot questions. And then the bot would respond back with whatever. So not only are you now having that visual aid and you can view whatever you're looking at, you can also, I think use our Q&A maker that we have at Microsoft to build that out and put in all the questions. And that was probably one of my more favorite projects that I've created. Anything that you can like learn, I would say is like my favorite, which is like everything I make. So
I love that. You gave me an idea too when you were talking, because I just went on this like museum tour.
yeah.
And you know how you have like the guided tour and it has like a little
Yeah.
tablet and it does like the recording, but you're like, you have to look for the little numbers and stuff like that. Like it would be so much better to put on like a HoloLens and be guided through that way, like with a wayfinding. And then when you look at something, it could use like object recognition to know exactly what to start saying. Because then there was times where you don't necessarily, it was a really big museum, so you don't necessarily go to like all the different places. But there was some that I skipped that looked cool, and then I'm like, oh wait, now I gotta go figure out what did I miss? Where like if it was more of an immersive experience rather than having like a tablet and a headphones, like if it was a HoloLens, like it would be such a cool thing to just look at something that can start talking, and then you could be like, if you want to keep listening, you could, or if it wasn't interesting to you, you could move on. So I love the educational piece. So like you were bringing the museum to you yourself.
Oh yeah, I was bringing it to you, but you're like, let's go to the museum and then add on to the experience. And I think it's really powerful. I've seen a project a year or so ago with, it's a museum, I think it was based in Europe, and they actually did something similar with the HoloLens, not necessarily just focused on ensuring you're able to get around to the different parts of the museum, but they added a whole additional experience as well on top of that. And so you got to actually see and view more in the exhibit because they also had this virtual experience in there. And even just in general, the use of just like even just HoloLens, for example, your smartphones as well in these sort of museum environments has become a bit more popularized.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, and you're starting to see a bit more different museums who are trying to incorporate or integrate this sort of technology into experiences for museum goers. I think we're at a point now, just given the state of the world, it's a lot easier to add mobile experiences with like your phone. And then I think as time continues to go on, then we're going to get more of the headset incorporation, just from a health and safety perspective,
Yeah,
but it's something that's like has definitely been
like
explored, thought about. I've spoken with folks who are currently literally doing work in that area as well, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, now I would say outside of the educational side, outside of the, ways that we can have these applications in an enterprise perspective, what are some like games or like other like fun ways though that you've personally, whether you've made or something you've tried out in terms of experience that you've really enjoyed?
Okay, so my first game that I built with Babylon JS that one was fun. So it's obviously not like the best game ever, but I ended up making one that I used for a workshop, and I really liked it because the way that I learn is by, I set a goal, right?
Yeah.
But with WebXR, I was like, well, I don't really know what I want to build, and so I started playing around, and they had these like the sphere that would drop, right? And it would like bounce. And I'm like, well, what can I do with this? And so I ended up making this game where like spheres drop from the sky and you have to like pop them and then like, and I actually, by the end of that game, I had realized I figured out how to do gravity and how to do particles and all the physics engine stuff and like, there were materials and shading and lighting. And then when I was done, I'm like, okay, this game may be really, really simple.
Yeah.
I still thought it was really fun to play, but I built it. But I mean, like I would have other people play it, and it was for the Quest. You know, we were playing it on the Quest through WebXR. But yeah, that one was probably fun because it was also just exciting to see what I could do.
Yeah.
And their playground, the Babylon JS playground, was super helpful.
Oh yeah.
If you are interested in Babylon JS, the playground, you can go and they have all these different examples of like how to do something very specific, and you can see the code exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
So you can grab it and copy paste in or update it, and you can actually edit it in the browser and hit play all at the same time. So that was the other thing that was cool because we talked about how much setup can happen.
Yeah.
And so that one was fun because it was really easy to get people started and then use it as a workshop. For virtual reality games, like I feel like I play more games on the virtual reality side than HoloLens. I don't know, what are like some cool HoloLens games that you've played?
In terms of games, there's also Kippy's Escape. I know just in the prior session with Brent, he did talk about the latest that we have now, which is, I keep forgetting the little cute robot's names, but it's a similar experience. It's a series of puzzles whereas you're able to help Kippy pretty much get back on Kippy's rocket so that way Kippy can fly away. And that was a pretty cool experience. One thing I've done that's been more just on a little bit of the fun side, I just made kind of like a birthday scene, using some scene understanding, you know, mapping out where my ceiling is, and then when the experience starts, press a button and balloons just flow up to the ceiling. So there's some gravity involved in there as well. So yeah, as a whole, I would say there's a lot of good things you can do in general. I know as we're here at Dev Days, we have some more sessions that we're going to get into here soon. And so coming up, I know you have a talk in a bit, and then we have a discussion happening later as well with Grace as well as Jessie. We're going to speak a bit more about MRTK3 with Grace. But for now, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next session, and we'll see you all soon.